All right, if I can have everyone's attention. City of Peru Common Council agenda, call the special meeting to order. December 18th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, be led by me, and the invocation to follow. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you for your goodness and your mercy and all of your blessings upon us. We thank you for this mayor and this city council. This is their last meeting, and I've had the privilege of praying for them for the last 4 years. And I pray that those that are going out, that you would go with them and give them peace. Those that are continuing on to serve, that you would continue to give them wisdom as they serve our city. We give you thanks for men and women across every department in our city that step up to serve the citizens of Peru. Many times it's a thankless job, regardless of their position or title. And so, Lord, I just pray your blessings upon them. And I say thank you for people that are willing to put their shoulder to the plow and work to make this a great place. Bless this meeting tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Whoops.
Roll call.
Anderson. Here. Guston. Here. Clotho.
Here.
Ramsey.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Sayedashny.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Unfinished business. Ordinance 32-2023. An ordinance of the City of Peru concerning park improvement by the Peru Park and Recreation Board through the issuance and sale of bonds and other matters connected therewith.
Before we make a motion to adopt ordinance number 32,
Second.
2023, no, I'm saying before we do, I'd like to continue discussing that.
Well, we can discuss it after we move to adopt in second. I won't call for the roll call until you have discussion. You can do that.
Right, but then we'd have to vote on it. And if we discuss before we make a motion to adopt, we don't have to vote on it.
Okay.
All right, so I got a couple questions for you, Gary. Did you get more than one quote for the irrigation system?
No, I have not.
Okay, so just one quote from Hydro Design, that's all we got.
Yes.
Okay. And then the budget information that you gave to us at the last meeting shows that you guys made $252,652. That's what you brought in last year, correct?
The budget information?
This that you gave us last time?
Oh, the clubhouse
What you
clubhouse
brought in.
revenues.
Yeah. And so how much do you think you actually made? Because that's just what you brought in, and your line items on the budget are more like $320,000. So how much do you think you guys made? Because you said you were in the black, not in the red last year.
Kurt?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
But you're 100% positive you made money?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Jace?
We never stated last meeting, you can go back and look, we never stated that we were in the black.
You
We said
did.
we had the best season that we've ever had.
no, for my budget. My yearly budget, I did not go into the red, I don't believe. We were right there. That's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay,
Not
but
this.
you did say you were in the black last year.
For my budget, which is the 300 and some thousand that they give me every year for my budget. In my 6 years, we have always went over that budget, whether it be paying for city water, fuel, other things.
Okay.
This year, I believe we did not do that, and that's what I
So you
said.
guys are saying you're not making a profit then, that you're in the red?
I don't believe so. Not if you look at numbers. I don't think the golf
Yeah.
course has ever made a profit.
Okay.
We increased revenue by 25%. Did we break even? No.
Okay. I just wanted some clarification on that because the last meeting made it sound like you did, but then when I looked at the budget and I
Right.
looked at what you guys brought in, there's
No, I was talking,
70,000 loss.
I was just talking about our yearly budget that we get.
Okay.
for-
Thanks for the
for expenses,
clarification
yes.
on that. And the only other thing I wanted to say is that, you know, the council, not me, I didn't vote for it, but the rest of the council voted to approve for the bonds for the utilities. And the utility, people that use the utilities, they have to pay, you know, through their rate increases. But the people, I mean, everyone has to pay for this bond. So
Yeah.
I'm not so sure how fair that is.
I think you have Heidi here from Baker Tilly, and she'll be happy to explain what the cost of the bonds and what was.
Yeah,
what was
and I got
rolled into there.
copies of that.
You got more information, you got more information right here.
Heidi
I
can give it to you.
I have a question before you go, Gary.
Yep.
Did you, 2 weeks ago, you, Jim, Ted, and Kurt agreed that you would get together to meet to talk about CETA funds? Did you do that?
No, I don't believe I ever agreed, but I said I was willing to. No, I was never contacted.
Okay.
Are you talking about CEDAP money or?
Right, yeah, because,
You suggested that, you didn't, I didn't say we would get together. You sent an email to that effect. You suggested that we get together. That was what it was.
yeah. I sent the email giving, because I said I'd give you the contact information for Jim and.
Right.
you
No, I
weren't-
never contacted
You
Jim
weren't
Tidd, no.
interested in.
It's not that I wasn't interested, but to be honest with you, I mean, how long have we had that CEDAP money?
What do you mean?
Forever. We've had it
Forever.
for,
I just felt
20
like if we were going to go that route, wouldn't we did? I mean, we've been talking about this for over a year now, 2 years. Everybody knows that irrigation has been a problem at the Peru Municipal Golf Course.
And,
Why didn't we look at using that money, when I came talking about leasing options, or then you guys wanted to hear the options on the bonds, and I just don't know why we waited until the last week,
well,
I
that's a
guess.
question I have for you. Why didn't you?
I wasn't aware that it's my job to go get a hold of Jim Tidd and go after all this money, I guess.
Did you want to add something?
Kathleen, we've had lengthy discussions. Just in the 18 months I've been at the golf course, we've had lengthy discussions. You came on board as the liaison. We went over every possible scenario. This was the scenario that seemed the most feasible, according to Dustin, Kurt, us, and we thought you. Within the last, since the election, really. That's the only time that I feel like this is you've really turned tides on us as far as your opinion on that. You never mentioned CETA funds in all the meetings that we had. Am I incorrect on that statement?
You're incorrect.
You mentioned CETA
Yeah,
funds?
I have, since day one, in fact, at multiple meetings with Jim Tidd, and we've talked about getting CETA funds for you.
I'm talking meetings with me, Gary,
So
and
do you
yourself.
feel like me asking about CETA funds that I'm
Absolutely
against
not.
you?
I feel like we're going back a little bit instead of trying to move forward.
Okay.
I just feel like we've spoke in length.
But what you're asking is the citizens of Peru, the taxpayers, to subsidize $175,000 a year for the
Yes.
next 10 years.
Yes.
And we're not willing to just say, wait a minute, let's maybe take that bond down, get $500,000 from CETA, and lower that bond to where it's less. So I don't understand where that problem lies.
The problem with doing that is you never know what's going to come about economic development-wise. So if each year you have extra funds over, say if you have 50,000 in CETA you could afford to spend on that, you could buy down that rate on the bond issuance itself. But to actually pledge something up front, it's just, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
But that's what we did with the Y. I mean, how many years were we promised to pay the Y with CETA funds?
That's,
Same thing.
it's apples and oranges in my opinion.
yeah, I don't think that's the same thing.
And I believe after you hear from Baker Tilly, I think you might have a different opinion on it.
It's just, okay, okay.
You guys know Heidi?
Yes,
Yes.
it's been a little while, but thank you for having me. Heidi Amswell with Baker Tilly. So I just handed out a set of schedules that I would just like to take a moment to walk through with you guys. If you want to flip to page 2. So one thing that's a little bit unique is that because you guys have a park district in place, the city has a debt limit, but also the park district has its own separate 2% debt limit. So what is shown here, the calculation's similar, but the debt is a little bit different. So what is shown on page 2 is the debt limit for the park district for 2024. So the calculation of the debt limit is the same as what it is for the city. You guys do have a bond issue that is outstanding, so that would be removed to get you to your net debt limit. But in the Park District situation, there's no bonds that are currently outstanding. So right now, you guys can, the Park District can issue bonds up to 1.87 million and some change, and stay within the debt limit. And that is just kind of a legality. If, you know, if there were more projects than you needed to do, you can go beyond that debt limit through a lease bond issue. I'm a financial advisor, not the lawyer, so, but it is more of a legality than it is anything. And so whenever we go to issue bonds, as you guys know, we always want to take a look at your debt limit. And in this situation, it is the Park District debt limit. And anything the Park District issues under, it needs to be used for park-related projects such as the golf course. So this bond issue would be a bond issue of the Park District. If you flip to page 3, on the very top part of the page, it shows you the net proceeds available for projects. So as has mentioned, right now we haven't signed any contracts with anybody as far as what these projects are going to be actually funded. But you can see that right now we have golf course building improvements or equipment of $145,000, and then the irrigation system of $1.5 million. Again, that is one bid that we've received at this point in time. In that bid, it said 1.2 to 1.5. That is just from one, so it is just a placeholder for right now, kind of the high end of the spectrum. If for some reason a bid would come in lower, that would allow more funds to be used for the long list of equipment and other building improvement projects like the roof, the doors that they need to do. So the way that we structured this was to get you to a $1.76 million bond issue, which is actually the 2023 debt limit amount. And then we put in 1.5 million for the irrigation system, which was the high end of their estimate. And then the rest is under that golf course building and improvements. The way the bond documents are written is that it can be used for golf course related improvements in the irrigation system, so that it allows flexibility to be used for the golf course, but allows flexibility to be used if there is excess funds for the equipment and building improvements as well. For every bond issue, as you guys are aware, there are fees and bond issuance costs. So the next two line items, the bank fee and the bond issuance costs, are allowances for both of those to get you to your total bond amount of $1,600,000, which is what is in the bond ordinance that is in front of you guys. So I definitely want to stop there and see what questions you guys have with this. So you can see in footnote number 2 for that irrigation system, what was included in that Hydro Designs bid was related to sprinklers, piping, hydraulics, and then the control system, which is the computer system that turns on and off all of the sprinkler heads and such.
Are you planning on getting another quote?
I could try, yes.
And did you ever figure out how much you're losing in utilities?
My irrigation has been shut off, so there's no.
Yeah, I've been asking you for like a year.
No, I haven't.
There's no way to put a flow meter on it to be able to tell what's,
Utilities have been here and said they could help them
Yeah.
figure that out.
they can help them
That's
figure out where the leaks are coming from.
No, they said they could help them figure out how much is being lost in utilities.
Yeah, Josh Chance said that that Leah McGuire and a couple of those people could really help nail that down, and I discussed that through text and whatnot with Gary. But yeah, Josh did say that could be done.
Honestly, I don't even know where all the leaks are. There's leaks underground that aren't even showing themselves to me yet. So the 40 I see, I could have another 40 underground not showing themselves. I mean, that's a project in itself, in my opinion.
Gary and Jason, I want to tell you something. There is no doubt in my mind that this needs to be fixed. No doubt. If we're going to keep the irrigation system, the golf course, it's got to be resolved. 30 years, it's been 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we're all aware of it.
But there's been some basic things that, this is economic development. If this is not an appropriate use for CETA, I'm not quite sure what is. And all I asked was, just to have a conversation and to come
I
back.
had these conversations months ago, Kathleen. Months ago. Would have loved to.
Okay, so what?
Why wasn't I invited to the meetings with you? them guys. They said they shot an email to Cliff. I never got emails. I never got invited. Don't nobody come up to the golf course.
The one thing I would like to add to the conversation is what you guys are approving tonight is a maximum par amount. So really between now and when we would issue a bond, there can be cash added into the mix because general revenues of the city are a pledge of the revenues towards this. So that when it comes to issue the bonds, we could issue something that's less than that if there can be an agreement as far as use of other revenues to fund the project. So that you're not issuing the 1.76, that you're issuing something less, and then there's a cash contribution into the mix. So that is still allowed within the legal documents if everyone's on board that you would want to move forward.
So you could put like ARP money.
Yeah, whatever the policyholders would decide to put towards this deal, you could definitely still do that. So again, this is just approving your max par amount. We don't actually plan to issue these bonds until like fall of next year, like closer to when you guys actually need the money, so that you're not paying interest, in between. So I just wanted to add that. And then on page 4, you can see that we are trying to keep the term of the bond short. So we've just shown a 10-year term on these bonds to get basically in a sweet spot with local banks if that's the route we decide to go on getting these bonds sold. So right now you can see we have a bond issue par amount of the 1.67 million. So like a mortgage schedule on your house, this is the payment schedule. The illustrative bond year debt service is your annual payment on this bond issue. The city has their existing GO bonds that are rolling off in 2027. So you can see the beginning years are a little bit less as far as the payment goes to help kind of wrap around those bonds that you already have a rate outstanding for. And then this bond issue would kind of pick up some of that rate that is rolling off. So you can see on the far right-hand column, the debt service tax rate that we would estimate based off of this bond issue. Again, if there were cash infused into the deal, the par amount of the bonds be less, then obviously this all decreases across the board with the intent of trying to keep those early years lower to kind of wrap around that existing debt. And then the last schedule is what we call the taxpayer impact schedule. So your top line item is your current tax rate. So the city's current tax rate is $5.08 and some change. The illustrative tax rate adding these bonds in would be $5.18. So it's like a 9-cent rate increase in those larger years. Because all of your taxpayers are currently at the tax caps, the taxpayers will actually not feel the impact of this bond issue. It will be the city that feels it because they have to pay the debt first before anything else is paid. So to your constituents, there will not actually be an impact because everyone's hitting their tax caps right now.
Okay. I'd like to
So you can see your-
make a motion to adopt ordinance 32.
We already considered last
They
meeting.
considered it last
We're making a
meeting.
motion to adopt.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, Pete, you said you motioned to adopt?
Yes, I make
Do I have a
a
second?
motion to adopt ordinance 32, 2023.
I didn't make it.
Okay. well,
I'll
just-
second that.
Second.
Pat, a second, okay, thank you. Any more questions for these people? Okay.
Roll call.
Anderson,
Yes.
Guston,
Yes.
Plotho,
No.
Ramsey,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Saidashni,
Yes.
Wolf.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving right along. City of Peru Common Council Ordinance 33-2023, an ordinance to amend ordinance in Chapter 90. Need a motion to take this off the table.
I'll make a motion to take ordinance number 33, 2023 off the table.
Second. Roll call.
Hang on, I'm writing.
Okay.
Anderson,
Yes.
Guston,
Yes.
Plotho,
Yes.
Ramsey,
Yes.
Russell,
Yeah.
Zayadashny?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
My final argument about this is going to be that not passing the ordinance is going to impose nuisance on everyone that wants to see it passed. Right now, I have 152 people on the petition that want to see the current ordinance changed. Under Indiana property law, the council has the duty to remedy ordinances that are arbitrary and capricious. The current ordinance takes away a right to reasonable use, creating a nuisance to tax-paying property owners. The current ordinance prohibits chickens because of the potential for the law to be violated, but that isn't why we create ordinances. When an ordinance is passed, for the most part, there is not a requirement that there must be a 100% guaranteed compliance of the entire community, or we wouldn't need to put fines and penalties in. None of the information that I found was given from Purdue said that the chickens should be prohibited at all costs. They all outline reasonable means to keep chickens that do not violate nuisance, noise, and odor. The ordinance is a preventative measure to address all the concerns in extreme situations. The new ordinance requires a permit to be displayed on the coop. That is an attempt to notify others that it is a requirement. In addition, almost every article I read about chickens tells people that despite what they hear, they should always check local laws and ordinances before getting them. To top that off, if you ask any question, and if you ask the same questions in a chicken group, there's sure to be people that chime in and say if you live elsewhere, you need to check your local laws before you make the investment. There are parts in the ordinance that are intended to make it obvious that not everyone can just get chickens. I'm sure we can do more to notify people in the community how to comply if it does pass. Chickens have been given a bad image as a troublesome burden, and any animal when not maintained and cared for properly can cause problems. Regulating chickens by means of a controlled ordinance instead of prohibiting them promotes a community where property rights are honored for all parties. I want to live in a community where I can use my property in a reasonable way just like every other citizen. I have written this ordinance within the boundaries of property law and what is considered reasonable use. The legal requirement for nuisance is that it infringes upon the person's property and keeps them from reasonable use on their property. We don't ban fences when people fail to get a permit for that. We didn't say, well, people are building illegal fences, so we need to keep them from building them. We don't pass laws expecting 100% compliance. We pass them with restrictions and guidelines for people to come into compliance. It would be nice, but 100% compliance, if that were a requirement, we would never pass any ordinances. So that's what I have to say about that. I did do more research on the health aspect of it. People had concerns about avian flu and diseases last meeting. I have all the resources from the CDC here talking about, proper hand washing techniques and, avian flu is highly tracked. There's all kinds of networks that require reporting. They track it, and I have the outbreak reports and everything. There's only ever been 2 human infections from that, so that should not, it's very rare, so that shouldn't be a risk. Does anybody have any questions? I have all of my resources here that I used for the ordinance.
Jennifer, last night I told you that I was going to support you on this. Then I didn't sleep all night. And I went back and forth between, animal control and code enforcement and how do we handle that. And I'm still kind of confused about who would be responsible for what. And I know we've got, Rebecca, can you help me understand code enforcement versus animal control on this, please?
I can't. I looked over the ordinance that she proposed, which you've done phenomenal research on this. I have a lot of questions about this as well, just because I know from the code enforcement standpoint, we have the legalities. We typically run everything through Dustin to make sure we aren't going to be sued later. If we do go to court, which we have gone to court for vehicles and things like that, that we are doing it properly. So I feel like there's a lot of gray areas that still need adjusting on this ordinance. I'm not opposed to the chickens. Don't lynch me for being up here having an opinion. But, there's things like animal control has does not have a 2-mile jurisdiction. They're just within city limits. Code enforcement does. So where do the chickens stop? If he's going to do the permits and we're going to do the inspections, that's a gray area.
So
We need to define if it's just going to be within the city corporate limits or if it's going to be in the 2-mile.
So we're kind of asking, this is my last meeting, what do we do when the chicken crosses the road?
You guys
Come
get to vote
on.
on that, so I don't know. Again, I just think that there are a lot of gray areas that need to be adjusted or directed to the legal part of things. It says the animal control is going to collect the fees. It doesn't say where those fees are going to go. I mean, does he have a non-reverting account that it's going to go to? I mean,
Greg?
just reading over this stuff quickly, I was like, this just doesn't add up. So.
I just want to say that part about the permitting, that was never on my part. That's just something she brought forward in the back during one meeting.
But I agree with the, okay, so it says that the fees are going to go to
I'd rather
you.
not mess with any of the
Right.
money or the permitting.
Right, but at the same time, if you're, let's say that you have to take someone's chickens. You have to take them because they're not complying. Then what do you do? What are you going to do with them? That's the question.
Well, aren't we supposed to, I mean, what happens
fine.
now if,
You
what
fine.
happens now if you have run into, like Steve asked the question, there are chickens in our city, so when you're called out, what is the step?
So code enforcement goes out.
Okay.
We take photos, we write it up. They have to comply. If they're not in compliance, then Greg follows up.
Okay.
Luckily, the people we've written up have complied. Now we're going to have a larger scale of chickens in the city. What if they don't comply?
But if they
That
don't
still
comply, I
hasn't,
got no place to keep them. I can't put them inside the shelter with the dogs. There's nowhere to do with them.
how long does he keep them? And I know that the comment was made that we have farmers that will take them. What if they don't? I mean,
How far out do I have to drive to drop off a chicken out of the city to come back into the city?
so again, I don't think that people are opposed to this. I feel like it needs tweaking and adjusting a little bit more.
Somebody sent a message to me via Facebook saying exactly what the three of you guys are talking about is, I think we need a chicken ordinance, but it's not clear enough. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly what Rebecca's saying.
honestly-
There's too many what-ifs
Okay.
without saying this is exactly how we need to run it.
Again, so one thing that I run in with code enforcement is we do the fines, we do the fees to people. If I give someone a ticket and say, you didn't pick this up and we have to charge you $25 a day every single day, there's no teeth in those fines. If I put a lien on your property, we get reimbursed eventually. Again, this just says a fine. It doesn't say where that fine money is going to go, if it's going to be put on as a lien after so many days. There's no guidelines on that.
So maybe
That's what was my problem with this, is there's problems in the compliance.
Well, I mean, I know you also said, Pat, that it was going to increase our workload, which
Right.
as the city, the taxpayers pay us to do this.
Right.
So if it increases our workload, it increases our
Right.
workload. We just need to be educated and have clear guidelines on what we
where.
should be doing.
Right.
I'm not opposed to the work. I just need guidelines.
But
Does anyone else have anything
Well-
new they would like to add?
I think she had something she wanted.
Part of the reason for the $70 permit fee was because I know that when you do fine people, that's not guaranteed money. So part of the reason that fee was kind of so high was so that the people that are complying are, making that payment, saying they're going to comply, and it's helping the rest of the city that is having problems. It's paying you're paying your contribution in to support animal control, because he is going to have to go out and do things, whether it be with chickens or dogs. I want to pay it because I want to pay to support animal control. So that's why the permit fee is in there. I know that fines are not always collectible.
And then I guess that's another question I have. We do pretty much all the permits through the building department. Does he even have the setup to do permits? So, I mean, it's just, I feel like it needs a little bit more tweaking. That's my opinion, so.
So what about, so the Center for Rural Engagement is currently partnering with several organizations here in town. Library, circus, they're working with the White Transportation. They are familiar with some of these kind of things. What if we got some of their guidance from other rural communities? Get you involved, you involved, to write up a proper ordinance and the city attorney.
I think she has the teeth here. I mean, I think we're on the right track. I just feel like the city attorney needs to look over things, and I guess code and animal control need to go through stuff as well.
I'd like to invite other people that have something new to add, please, and going to move this. Ron, come on up.
My name's Ron Rylands. I'm on the Peru City Plan Commission. One thing that I'd like to add is last month, or this month at the city council meeting, the mayor had introduced a letter to us at the Plan Commission with his opinion of having the chicken ordinance, and he was against it. He couldn't be at our meeting. It was never mentioned to the council at the last council meeting. So I'm making it known now. There was a letter from him. He's not in agreement with it.
And Ron, we weren't able to watch that meeting because it wasn't that meeting wasn't posted prior to our city council meeting.
That's fine. I just want you to be aware of it. Now, there was some mention made by Ms. Maggart about only 2 deaths. That's wrong. There have been over 380 deaths from salmonella transferred from humans, or to humans from chickens. There's also been over 2 million or 20 million deaths of the American bald eagle confirmed that they had the virus from chickens, salmonella. There have been over 50 million birds total that have lost their lives because of salmonella directly from backyard chickens. CDC has a wealth of knowledge on it.
Information supports that.
There is information, they have it.
And I have read
Well,
all the information
it's my turn to speak now. I don't endorse this having chickens in the city limits. I'm going to try and make it short. I'm going to cut out a lot of stuff. The amendment as it was altered. There's documentation that proves that surrounding neighbors should be notified and have their approval 100% before anyone is allowed to have chickens. And that is backed by the Humane Society even. I gave Pete a copy of the information. But that portion was removed by vote of the Plan Commission because Ms. Maggart was arguing about it. So Joe made the motion to just eliminate that portion of it. I feel like it needs to be in there. Issues, there's a lot of issues. We were given a short period of time to try and create this. There's a lot of gray, and I agree with that. Veterinary services. Is there any veterinary services in the area that can take care of these chickens? The waste is a big issue. The health department said that waste should be treated with lime prior to being they said triple bagged. Other research that I've shown that was given to Pete only says double bagged and no lime. You do that, and you're putting a hot manure in trash compactor trucks, and you're going to have problems. You're going to have fires inside the truck from it. Bottom line is, please say no to this ordinance. If you decide you want to push it through, send it back to the Plan Commission for much more work. That's all. I mean, it's not where it needs to be. I don't feel it needs to be in our city anyways.
Ron, you just made a good point. You said it's not worthy to be in. And as written, you might be right. As written, you might be right. That's a good statement.
I mean, I put a lot of work into that ordinance. It wasn't just written by Ms. Maggart. It was a combined effort, but it was a timeline, and I was told I had to have it done by then. It would need to anything. It would need to be sent back and do more work on it. Now, I don't believe we need to do that. I don't think we need. this only affects 1.8% of the population of Peru. That's not in the best interest of Peru, creating an ordinance for 1.8%. Tom?
If we don't have an ordinance, can anyone raise chickens if they want?
It's
No.
already against the ordinance.
Yeah, we already have one
Yeah.
that says
Shouldn't
no.
I really feel that we should add to the ordinance we have about the animals, at least put fines to it,
That's a whole different issue, right?
because there's no teeth on the ordinance we have.
Anybody else have a question? If not,
I-
I'll leave.
I think we've had enough discussion. I'd like to make a motion to adopt.
Jennifer wants to rebuttal.
Because a lot of the statistics that were
Is this
thrown up there were just numbers that were just
calling a
rambled off.
point,
They didn't have
point of
anything wrong
order?
with them.
A point of order here is we're not going to go over everything that
I
was
would
done
have
at the
planned.
last meeting.
I would
Is this
not.
something new?
I'm just rebutting what he was just saying. So
Okay,
I have
go
a right to
ahead.
defend myself. These are the documents that I was given. He gave them to me before the committee meeting so that we could draft the ordinance. I also reached out to Courtney Schmidt, the Purdue Extension Officer, with the ordinance that we drafted. She didn't give me like a personal opinion. She sent me the same documents that he had. She sent me the information for what the Miami County just went over, their ordinance, which was completely different. It was not a one-for-one comparison to what I have just written. This is Purdue. These are all little healthy families and flocks. I don't think they would give these things out if it was impossible to keep a small flock in your yard. Washing your hands, changing your shoes. This is avian flu. You get these diseases, salmonella, avian flu, campylobacter, whatever it's called. It's all from touching their feces and getting it in your mouth, in your eyes, whatever. So unless, if you're using good hand washing practices, it says there's a lower risk. So it's not, and the death thing that he said, I wasn't saying deaths, it was avian flu. There were 2 people in the report, the most recent report from 2023, that got it, and it was 1 person in the U.S. and 1 person in the U.K. that ever got it. They didn't die, and it's like flu symptoms, it goes away. And the thing with avian flu is it just kills flocks. So that's why it's so important for it to be tracked, because it will kill our poultry industry. So it's not, it's possible that it could mutate and humans could get it, but that's not why they're tracking it so vigorously. And the salmonella thing, I'm sure it killed bald eagles somewhere, but what are all the details of that? All of that stuff has to do with, the cross-contamination and all of those things. And there's information from, I believe it's the CDC, they test all the backyard flocks when there's an outbreak, they test those too. And most of the big outbreaks the recent one was turkey facilities. So it wasn't from local flocks. They weren't the cause of all these bird deaths everywhere. There's actually a migratory path tracking system, and they said that correlates to when they found these big patches of avian flu. So you can actually track it when migratory birds are going through, large flocks of them. You can look and see that you might have a higher risk there of the avian flu in your local poultry facilities. So it all has to do with that. It's not backyard flocks, just like making everybody sick. It's not airborne. It's in their feces, so clean practices.
The health issues, I think that you can have equal arguments and even settle those. The one thing that we're stuck on is respect for code enforcement and animal control, to where we can have these regulations or codes, but then what does Greg do? And we've got to respect animal control. We've got to respect code enforcement. How do we put these 2 together, and how do we protect the citizens of Peru and the person who owns chickens?
And property rights, yeah.
And property
because
rights.
this is, what I'm asking for is reasonable use. It's,
But we don't-
articles all over the place.
Right,
like-
but what I'm saying, Jennifer, is we're not currently set up, Rebecca and Greg, are you saying that we are not currently set up to fulfill our obligation for this ordinance? Is that kind of,
That's where I'm at.
okay, because I'm for having chickens, having people have property rights. The thing is then you've got the regulatory way of handling it. And we've got to respect two departments who will be the enforcers of this.
The way I see it, if you pass this tonight, somebody comes up tomorrow and says, I want to get a permit for my chickens, what are we supposed to do?
Well, see, that's an easy fix, because then we just start the process of getting them put together.
Yeah, but I don't think it makes the city look good if we're not even prepared for something that we passed.
I think that the fact that we're trying to just hurry up and push this through for whatever reason is kind of a red flag in itself. I think that something like this, if it's going to affect every citizen in this town, needs to be looked at thoroughly by every department. And that if you're going to pass this or not pass it, you should be able to stand by what you're passing or not passing.
Why is it being hurried?
I don't know, this is the first I've heard of it, so.
I'm all for working with you guys and doing whatever. I just don't know the process, so I've
No,
just
and I
been
understand, and it's
researching.
not your job to know our process.
Do you
But
know
I
what
think
you're
that-
doing, Jennifer? What has just been displayed for the past 2 meetings is what Allison, Paul, and I were talking about on the phone earlier, is democracy. This is the way government is supposed to work. You're supposed to have these ideas and then come to a legislative body and the different departments and say, this is my idea, help me.
So
Absolutely.
So we've got an idea, and now we know what steps to move, how to move forward.
And like
So
I said,
that's
she did a
perfect.
lot of, I mean, she's got the bones in the ordinance. She did so much work on it. I just think that it needs tweaking a little more.
So the thing is
What
to
if we
put
don't
it back
vote
on the
it?
table?
What if we don't vote on it? What if we just let the next council take it up and the next zoning planning commission take it up?
I'd
Put it
like
back
to
on the
call the
table.
question because
Yeah,
I
put it
think
back
we're
on the
getting,
table.
Wait just a minute, wait just a minute.
You can do that or you can put it back on the table, so.
I'd like to make a motion that we put it back on the table.
A second.
Before we do that, Pete had already made a motion.
Nobody seconded
You
it?
called the
No,
question. You called the question.
I did call the question. I think we're getting bogged down, and I think we've discussed this, in detail. We've given people an opportunity to speak, and that's why I'd like to,
Okay, well, there's been no motion to adopt yet, because we just discussed, we took it off the table, and then we had discussion. So that's where it stands right now,
There's been a motion to put it back
to
on the
table.
table.
That's the only motion that's
Vote to do
on the
that.
floor.
or you can
Okay.
vote
And
against that.
seconded.
Vote
Yes,
to-
so that's what we need to do.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So there's been a motion made to retable the ordinance, and it's been seconded, so we'll have a roll call for that. Anderson.
Yes.
Guston.
Yes.
Plotho.
Yes.
Ramsey.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Sayedashny.
no.
No. Wolf.
Yes.
You guys survived the great chicken debate of 2023.
Thank you.
So you guys can get together, Rebecca and Jennifer and Greg.
Okay, moving right along.
You're welcome.
Under new business,
You hate me now, I know.
City of Peru Common Council Ordinance 34-2023, an ordinance to amend Ordinance 24-2022 as amended by Ordinance 35-2022.
I'll make a motion to consider ordinance number 34, 2023.
Second?
Anderson.
Yes.
Guston.
Yes.
Plotho.
Yes.
Ramsey.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Sayedashny.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
Somebody from police department going to come talk?
Questions for me? I think you guys know pretty much what I want. And ordinance, whereas, all the whereases make sense to me.
Basically, if you look at the ordinance, it's just down to the red where he's added one-time bonus. Everything else was the ordinance that passed in the end of 2022 for the wage ordinance, and then it was amended in January when the street department came forward. So, but it's just down to the bottom of the first page.
One of the questions, Kurt, when this first started was what we could and couldn't do.
Yep.
Is everything, fine on the way it's being presented? I mean,
The way it's being presented is correct. I contacted Amber at Baker Tilly. She went over all the numbers, our budget. She went over where we stood so far, and because I wasn't going to make a call on it by myself, I wanted a second set of eyes on it, and that's what we had. So.
Jackie said it was all right. I make a motion to adopt.
I'll second that.
Who adopted? Yeah. Who was
That's-
second? I'm sorry.
Betsy.
What was the motion?
To adopt.
Okay, Anderson.
yes.
Guston.
Yes.
Clotho.
Yes.
Ramsey.
No.
Russell.
Yes.
Sayadashni.
No.
Wolf.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, yeah, I said we were going to do this.
Okay, moving right along, Resolution 22-2023.
I'll make a motion to consider resolution number 22, 2023.
Second.
Anderson.
Yes.
Guston.
Yes.
Clotho.
Yes.
Ramsey.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Sayadashni.
Yes.
Wolf.
Yes.
As you can see, there's a lot of whereases, a whole bunch of whereases. This has to do with errors that occurred prior to me coming in, basically doing with payroll. And there are positive balances and negative balances in fund accounts that should have zero balances. And so I've talked to the State Board of Accounts, I've talked to Baker Tilly, talked to Dustin, and this is the way it needs to be done. There is one account in there. It's a payroll clearing account. It should, obviously, if it's payroll clearing, it should have either money in it or clear it out to zero, and it's at $83,000 in it since the first of the year. There are funds there that are for withholding for garnishments for people who are no longer employed. There are the state and the county withholding accounts have been negative this year due to not having enough funds in them due to the errors from a couple of years ago. So this is a way to make the funds that should have zero, make it at the end of November. You'll see the first two changes are the state and the county. That was what those two particular accounts were short to fund the payment to the state of Indiana on December 18th. It's never going to go negative again because she's had two payrolls since, but at the end of November, there should have been more money in those accounts to make the payment for what's going to be paid this week. And then when we get all those funds straightened out, then the remainder of the money, the $48,000 or whatever, will go back from the payroll clearing account into the general fund. But we were cited when the State Board of Accounts did our audit that there were negative fund balances, and this is the last of them, hopefully.
Well, I just want to go on the record of saying I'm not going to vote to correct any of the errors the previous clerk made, because in real time I was trying to point out those errors and fell on deaf ears from everyone involved. So
well, I have to get your guys' approval to move the money, or they're going to show up again on the next State Board of Accounts.
I get that, but just so you know, I'll be voting against it just because I'm not going to correct any errors that she's made for her.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 22, 2023.
Second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Guston?
Yes.
Clotho?
Yes.
Ramsey?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes.
Sayadashni?
Yes.
Wolf?
No.
Okay, no further business. We're up for adoption. For
Adjournment.
Adoption?
I'll make a
Yeah,
motion we adjourn.
adoption.
Second. All's in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One thing I want to wish everyone here Merry Christmas. I appreciate everyone coming out,
Are you gonna-
and I appreciate the last 4 years being able to work with the public in the capacity that I had. Thank you all.